Hey there, this is Nikki Burnett. I'm the founder of Taste Life Nutrition, and I'm a functional nutritionist. I practice strategic evidence-based consulting. I work with clients all over the board, so autoimmune, GI issues, that's probably what I see so much, or autoimmune and GI, but I also work with fertility clients. I work with weight management and thyroid and hormone balance and imbalance and that kind of thing. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about sugar. I was doing a little bit of research, and which is kind of one of my favorite things to do. I know it's weird, but doing some research and came across an article about sugar, and wanted to, I think that there's so much confusion about sugar. What sugar is good? What sugar is bad? Is there a difference between sugar? Is sugar, really that bad for you? We talk about how awful it is. And so understanding sugar a little bit, and you can dig into this stuff and just go as deep as, you can continue to go deeper and deeper, especially when it comes to the metabolic issues surrounding sugar and what can happen. But one of the articles that I found said that as Americans, we eat a half a cup of added sugar a day. And that's kind of a lot of sugar. And so we're not talking about fruit sugar or natural sugars. We're talking about candies and sweets and added sugar to processed foods, because when they take the fat out, they add sugar, because taking the fat out takes the flavor away. And so they add sugar. Think about low-fat yogurts, low-fat milks. I guess I don't know about milk, but like milk replacements, things like that. You take the fat out, the flavor goes away, so you've got to add sugar to it to make it more palatable. But then you're taking one thing out, which is actually healthy for the most part, and replacing it with something that is not healthy. And so that's a ton of sugar, and we get it in places that we don't expect. We know if we're eating a candy bar or if we're drinking a soda, we're getting sugar. And I guess that would lead me to sugar alternatives are not the answer. Maybe stevia is fine, but think about it, it still has the ability to spike blood sugar. I guess I'm kind of going off on a tangent a little bit, but I'm just going to speak as it comes to me, I suppose. But things like aspartame, these things are starting to show that they increase the incidence of Alzheimer's disease. I mean, that's a really big flipping deal. And if you didn't know, Alzheimer's disease is considered type 3 diabetes. Lots and lots of factors go into the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as any other chronic condition that we're suffering from these days. But when we're considering it type 3 diabetes, that's really significant. That sugar plays a really big role in Alzheimer's, as do sugar substitutes. So super dangerous. Just stay away from the sugar substitutes. They're no good. And then, of course, let's get into the differences in sugars, which I'm going to start out saying there's not a lot. Sugar is sugar. The body sees it as sugar no matter what. And we want to be really careful with the amount of sugar that we take in. So let's start with the best sugar, which is going to be fruit sugar. And I'm talking just fruit, not just the sugar from fruit, not just fructose, but fruit. So fruit obviously has all of the amazing things intact that we're supposed to have. It's got the fiber, and it's got the antioxidants, and the vitamins and the nutrients and the phytonutrients, and probably all of these things that are other things that we don't even realize at this point that it has. So eating the whole food, if you hear me or any other nutritionist out there, you're going to hear, let's eat whole foods. And so I think that there are lots of things that are in foods that we don't realize are there, because that are beneficial for us. But what's so interesting is these things work together. If we separate them out, they may not work as well as we want them to, or as well as they're supposed to work. So that's another thing about eating whole foods, whether it's the whole vegetable or the whole egg, or the whole fruit, is keeping it intact. This is the way God made it, and this is the way that we're supposed to eat it for the most part. There are times than when, you know, we can take a component out, and maybe that helps us a little bit. Again, I'm going to jump off topic for half a second, but if you think about turmeric. Turmeric is great, but you have to eat a whole lot of turmeric to get enough curcumin, which is the active component and the anti-inflammatory component in turmeric, to decrease inflammation and to create the what we want, for the effects that we want. Also, mixing things like black pepper, phospholipids with curcumin help with absorption and bioavailability of turmeric. Totally off topic, but I can't help but to throw it out there, because just eating turmeric, which is amazing, just eating it by itself, you're not usually going to get quite the effect. So use it in your food. Don't supplement with turmeric, because you can just use it in your food. Supplement with curcumin, with bioperine, which is black pepper, and phospholipids. Okay, moving back to sugar. One of the things, so the best sugar is fruit. Remember that. But also remember, not everybody can have sugar. Not everybody can have fruit. If we're dealing with blood sugar issues, we may want to take fruit out for a while. If we're dealing with a diabetic, we may want to take fruit out for a while, and could be indefinitely. It kind of depends on the situation. But we always want to have as many veggies as we can in our diet, but fruit is one of those things that can kind of go either way depending on health status. So remember that. And know which fruits are higher in sugar and lower in sugar. Berries are typically much lower in sugar than, say, a banana or a mango or something like that, which are amazing. I think my favorite fruit in the world is a mango. But if we're dealing with blood sugar issues, then we might want to, lay off the bananas and the mangoes for a bit. Okay, so let's move into some of the other sugars. The worst being white sugar. I remember as a kid, gosh, it's so bad. I remember as a kid eating a strawberry. I remember it so vividly. My mom brought home some strawberries. I took a bite and it wasn't sweet enough for me. So I went to the counter, I opened up the jar, in which of course we had all white sugar, and I stuck the strawberry in the white sugar because I needed more sweet. We're training ourselves, and unfortunately our kids, that we need more sweet, that the berries aren't sweet enough, the natural sweetness isn't sweet enough. And that's how I grew up. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know white sugar was bad. And I think now when I eat a strawberry, how amazingly beautifully sweet it is. And it sort of, freaks me out a little bit to think of adding anything to it, because it's so beautiful by itself. The same with any other fruit, especially berries. I'm just a berry girl. I think they're the best. But white sugar, without a doubt, is the most damaging thing you can do. White sugar is going to be added to, that and high fructose corn syrup, of course, which is even worse. High fructose corn syrup, the liver doesn't know how to handle it. There's no shut-off valve essentially for high fructose corn syrup. And so your blood sugar just keeps rising, and the liver flips out, and it doesn't know how to handle it. So if we're taking in the white sugars, we're taking in the high fructose corn syrup, one of the things that happens, and we hear about type 2 diabetes, we can expect this, but what we're seeing more and more and more, and I'm seeing it in my labs, not my labs, my clients' labs, more and more, is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So we're looking at labs and we see liver enzymes out of range. Why is this happening? Because we're taking in so much sugar, and so often we have no idea how much we're taking in. Well, I only have a soda a day. Well, I only have a sweet tooth a day. Well, I only had a cupcake today. Or whatever it is. Even, and let's go back a step and say even the breads and the pastas, all of those things turn into sugar, all simple sugars, and it overloads the body, overloads the liver, and we get into this situation where we have this non-alcoholic fatty liver syndrome. When we would see this fatty liver syndrome before, it was always due to alcoholism, heavy alcohol consumption, and now we're seeing people not drinking, just eating so much sugar and so much refined and processed foods that the liver is overloaded and it can't handle it any longer. So it increases triglycerides. If you've heard of triglycerides, you know, triglycerides are on labs. There are 3 sugars attached to a fat. And, you know, I was looking at this, this article, and it just said that it was just a fat. And, I think that's a little simplistic. It's 3 sugars that are attached to a fat. And if we have an overabundance of them in the body, then they get stored in the liver. And again, creates a lot of stress and inflammation in the liver. What happens when we have inflammation? Inflammation leads to chronic disease. So we can say, yes, it leads to potentially Alzheimer's disease, can lead to cardiovascular disease. Inflammation, systemic inflammation is the beginning and the basis of all chronic disease that we're dealing with. And sugar is a big, big part of that. If we don't get it under control, inflammation will increase, and the liver will just will continue to get sicker and sicker, and it'll lead to cirrhosis. Just like with an alcoholic. It's kind of amazing to me how that works. So how do we deal with insulin levels that are out of control, with bringing down triglycerides, with supporting the liver? Actually, I have a client right now who has a little bit of a hard time understanding why his cholesterol numbers are out of whack. And so we did his labs, and he said, it's genetic. They've always been out of whack. Well, his genotype shows that it's probably not genetic, but knowing his history, and then getting his labs back, I'm not surprised to see that he has non-alcoholic fatty liver syndrome. And so we are working on that. But so obviously changing your food. The interesting thing that's hard about sugar, sorry to jump around a little bit, but the interesting thing that's hard about sugar is it hits your opioid receptors in the brain. So there truly can be an addictive component to sugar, both to sugar, to breads and pastas, to dairy. When we hear people say, I can't live without my cheese, or I can't live without my pasta, sometimes there's an addictive component to that. So it can be a difficult situation to deal with. So it's not always just working with the nutritionist to change your diet. It could be working with a therapist to help you to kind of get around that addiction. I mean, let's just say it as it is. It's an addiction. So exercise, getting out and moving, and you don't have to go do CrossFit, which CrossFit is amazing, but going for a walk, taking your dog for a walk, let's benefit both of you. Going to yoga and walking the dogs are my 2 favorite things to do. Then, hiking on the weekends and going and playing and that kind of thing. But just get up and move. If you want to do more, get on your bike. If you want to do other things, I think that's amazing. But getting up and going for a walk is one of the best things that you can do. Another problem that we find in situations, and this is something that we can test for, is leptin resistance, essentially, or an insensitivity to leptin. What is leptin? Leptin is the hormone that tells you you're not hungry anymore. So I see this, I actually have heard it several times recently, where a client says, I don't really know how to know when I'm not hungry anymore. I could just keep eating and keep eating and keep eating. Well, we do their labs and we look, and they're out of range. And so, we can also assume that probably there's some insulin resistance as well. And so the things that are going to be some of the best things, in my opinion, are getting out, exercising, which also will help to decrease hunger. But if you need to do some fasting, whether it's intermittent fasting, if you saw my talk yesterday, I was talking about doing a 5-day fasting program. That is kind of considered a medical program, but it's pretty specific in the way that it's laid out. So if you want to watch that, watch it, the one that I did yesterday on fasting. It's a great program. I've had really great success with it. It's been a lot of fun to watch how people react to it. So those things can help with the leptin resistance and the insulin resistance. And what else is there? I think that those are the main things that I wanted to talk about. But understanding, let's get into other sugars. I really try to watch my sugar intake. I truly do. But there are times I want to have a little, whether it's in my, I do it's called Dandy Blend, a chicory dandelion that's a coffee-like replacer. Anyway, on the weekends, sometimes I want, a little coconut milk and let's sweeten it up a bit. So I'll do coconut sugar. Still going to be a sugar. The body's still going to react to it. It's just going to react to it. But I'm very, very careful about how much I put in. So, coconut sugar is probably, if you're going to have a sugar, it's a better sugar. If you've got blood sugar issues, mixing it with the fat, like with the coconut milk with some fiber, those things are smart to do. But if you have blood sugar issues, just staying away from the sugar period is ideal. Things like agave, that has been one of the most amazing marketing gimmicks that I've seen in a long time. Agave is, I think it is probably maybe just as bad as high fructose corn syrup. It is not a healthy sugar replacement. It's not something that you want to have access to on a regular basis. Seriously, and I fell for it. I totally fell for it early on before I knew the difference. So agave syrup is not the way to go, okay? Maple syrup, periodically, it's going to have your minerals in it, as well as molasses. A good quality molasses periodically is going to be a good choice. Again, keeping it at a very minimum, but that's going to be a good choice. I talked a little bit about stevia early on. Stevia is an herb, and I think if you need a little bit of sweet is maybe the best way to go, but you have to remember that everything starts on the tongue. So as soon as that tongue gets that sweet sensation, your body's going to start to react, and your glucose levels are going to rise. So just keep that in mind. It's it's fine. It's good. Also, think about this. And this is getting, probably a little deeper than most of you really care about. But when I see stevia, I see it's white. It's a white powder. Stevia is a green plant. When I see a white powder from a green plant, what am I thinking? It's highly processed. It's bleached. What are they using to process this plant to make it so white? That really does bother me. So you can get raw stevia that is just the herb, and it's brown. You can get that at the store as well. So that's a good option. Grow it yourself. Put it in your tea if you want to. I think those are great. So if you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to, I totally forgot, and I'm going to post this below. Sorry. I was, just looking up some other sugar articles, and this one's, it's kind of funny, 76 ways sugar can ruin your health. So I certainly won't go through all of these, but I think I want to go through a few of them because I think that it's really interesting. But it says it decreases good cholesterol levels. One thing that I want to hit on when it comes to good and bad cholesterol, what we hear is HDL is good and LDL is bad. And this is simplistic at best and completely incorrect. Okay. HDL can be good and HDL can be bad. LDL can be good. LDL can be bad. So here's LDL is what brings cholesterol. LDL is just a protein that brings cholesterol to the tissues. We have to have cholesterol for cellular integrity, for brain health, for hormone production. If you look at the metabolic pathways for all of our hormones, what you're going to see, all of our steroid hormones, is cholesterol at the top, pregnenolone, and then all of your hormones. So we have to have cholesterol. And by decreasing cholesterol, it can create hormone imbalance, but it can also, it can create hormone imbalance, which just creates a whole host of issues. But on top of that, the lower your LDL is, the higher your risk of stroke. keep that in mind. If you are on a statin, if you're trying to get your LDLs super low, you don't want them super low. You have to have LDL. So LDL brings cholesterol to the tissue. HDL takes cholesterol away from the tissue back to the liver to be recycled or eliminated, which is important. Why we want more HDL? Because we want the LDL to be carried away and carried out. But what's important to know about HDL and LDL is what we want big, buoyant, fluffy particles. That's what they call it, is buoyant particles. And we look for particle sizes. And so if we have HDL or LDL and those particle sizes are small and tiny, that means they're probably oxidized and atherogenic, which means it's a problem in your cardiovascular system. So we want big, fluffy, not small and atherogenic. We can have big, fluffy, or small in both LDL and HDL. So only looking at your HDL and LDL numbers is a big problem, because we need to look deeper. We have to look deeper, and always think about that when you're doing your own, you're taking care of yourself, doing your own research. Always look for the deeper answer. Okay. So what else can it do? So addictive and intoxicating, similar to alcohol. A few other things: reduces learning capacity, increases risk of antisocial behavior, depression, alcoholism, obesity. What are some? Dizziness, food allergies. Causes emphysema. Sugar causes emphysema. I hadn't heard that before. Can lead to autoimmune disease. Let's see, contraction of the appendix. Hemorrhoids, varicose veins, gum disease, ADD in kids, eczema. Let's see, a few others. Weakens eyesight, premature aging, DNA structure impairment, aging skin, fluid retention, brittle tendons. There's 76 of these. So I'm going to post this because I think it's super interesting to see what sugar can do to the body. So minimize sugar no matter what. Lots and lots of veggies. A little bit of, moderate amount of good, healthy grass-fed meat or pastured meat, good, healthy fats, some fruit, and that's what we need. All the good things in life. So again, have questions, let me know. Go to my website, tastelifenutrition.com. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.